Hey guys, welcome back to another Flea Market Finds episode. This is going to be a multi-parter. This was from a swap meet down at the fairgrounds in Connecticut in late October, and I ended up getting quite a few items. So let me show you a couple of things that I bought first thing in the morning. Snagged them because they were such good deals and knew they weren't going to sit around. First of which was this nice big screw jack. Very similar to one I just picked up a couple weeks ago in an orange one you guys saw me get for $5. I didn't get this one for $5. I had to pay $20 for this one, but this one is not seized like the other one was, but it's about the same size. So it's a good sized heavy sucker. So I got that for $20, and I asked him if I could just pay him for it and come back for it later. When I went back later in the day to pay for that one, he told me that he had fished out another one that he had, a small one, and it was this one right here, and I got this one. He had 20 on it, but I got this one for $10. And this one is a 1x6, I think it says. So this one is locked up, but probably, yeah, it doesn't look, at the end the screw looks bad, but the rest of it up there looks pretty good. So we'll clean it up, a little bit of lube, I'm sure that'll break free. One of the other things I snagged right first thing in the morning that wouldn't have stuck around very long was this CB antenna, which I normally don't bother with CB antennas. It's a mobile antenna, but this is going to be, I'm going to have to feed this into the frame slowly. So we got a steel whip on top of this big honking open coil design. And it's almost like turns into a miniature Shakespeare big stick. And it's got the PL259 connector here that unscrews, so you can just mount this through a hole in a bracket on a window, on a mirror mount, and mount it that way. And I got this for $5. For $5, I snagged it. And then later on I looked at it and I realized this is a Predator 10K antenna. So these antennas are made in the USA by a guy named Cale, the name eludes me, but it's a guy in Texas who makes these, and these are considered to be pretty good antennas by many truckers. The 10K means that this antenna is capable of taking up to 10,000 watts of input power. So big honking linear you could run on this thing. I don't know who's going to run 10K in a mobile, but they do it. By the way, in case you're wondering what these open coils are for, well, this is actually the perfect size to hold hot dogs. So you can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hot dogs in here. You run 10 kilowatts through this thing and you cook your hot dogs. Another deal I had, these Starrett digital calipers, model 798s. Normally, I don't buy digital calipers unless I know for sure they're working, especially Starrett, because unlike a lot of other Starrett tools, with the digital calipers, if they're broken, they're pretty much junk, because the manufacturer of the electronics tends to change. They tend to change vendors, and so if it's got a little bit of age to it, chances are it's not going to be able to get. You're not going to be able to get parts to repair it. But these, I noticed the box was nice and clean, and these actually look like they're in pretty good shape. They're well used, judging by how many times this battery cover has been off. But what these have going for them is that they actually work. I put the battery in now. The battery was actually out of them when I bought it. It was sitting here. This penny's in there, which makes a perfect little tool for opening that battery compartment. So these are actually pretty nice. The Starrett the Starrett 798s, and they're also they're IP. What the heck are they? IP67 compliant, I think. Yeah, right here. They're IP67 compliant, which means they're made to a certain tolerance to ensure that liquids and dust and stuff can't get inside there. So you wouldn't necessarily want to go drenching them under coolant, but the idea is if you're using them in the area where you're using coolant or something like that, they should be able to survive. So they wake automatically. I don't know if they go to sleep automatically or not, but they, if you hold the button, they do shut off. So pretty good. I'll probably end up selling these. I've got my digital Tessas, and I've also got a digital pair of Mitutoyos that I like. So I don't really need these. And because they're Starrett, they'll bring more money. Oh, so I ended up getting these and these 3 pieces right here for $35 from this guy. So I figure I'm into this for $20, and I'm into each one of these for $5. This is a nice center head. It looks like it might be a Starrett. And this one here, it's either a Lufkin or a Mitutoyo probably. Here's the combination square head. And the buttons here, the little knurled thumb screws match, so that's what makes me think these belong together. This one actually says something 12 there. You know, maybe these aren't Starrett. They actually say like ND or something D here, 12. The same letters are on here. And from another guy, I ended up snagging this V block. It's actually a pretty nice one. It's got 2 different size V's on it. You know, it definitely looks commercially made. But, oh yeah, no, it's a Brown & Sharp. It says so right there. Alright. This is a Brown & Sharp 750-5. So the funny thing about this is I found this block, and got it for $5, and then I dug through his other stuff. I found all of this stuff and put it together and got all this for 20 more. And for 20 more, I ended up getting these 2 little V blocks right here, which I believe are a matched pair. Yeah, it's a pair of 750A V blocks. And then this Lone Wolf V block here. This little pin vise. Starrett pin vise. And this assortment of all random V-block clamps. And I didn't check to see if... So it's funny, he had all these V-block clamps, but he didn't have the correct clamp for this nicer V-block. Are any of these a pair? They're right here. Alright, that's nice. Seems to fit this one okay. This next item here is a sign bar, kind of rusty. Could use some cleanup, but I got it for $2, so can't complain. And the guy I got this from for $2, he had this piece that he sold me for $1. And what this is this is a made in the USA by F&H Tool Company, supply company. Not sure where they're out of. But I believe this is a, yeah, it says so right on this side. This is a crankshaft gauge. So this would be a gauge used for checking journals on crankshafts during regrinding, I think. So, specialized automotive machinist tool. I got it for $1. This was much nicer for $1. This innocuous looking little hunk of metal with a hole in it is called a machinist's chair. A machinist's chair. Now it's not for a tiny machinist to sit in, although it looks like a nice little bench. No, what this is it's a type of edge finder. Oh, I was trying to think of the name that's attributed to this, and it's Moore Tool. So it's the Jigbor company, known for precision tools. And this is the edge finder attributed, I guess, to their design. This one looks like it's a knockoff. All right, so the way it works is this face right here, okay, we could see the edge down inside there of that face. That edge is actually right in the center of this rectangular hole we're looking at right here. So it's halfway between this face and this face. Okay, so we know that this edge that we can see down in the hole is halfway between this edge and this edge, or that face and that face, to be more correct, right? There's a face here and there's a face here, and that edge is halfway between these two faces. So since we know that, now we could take the chair, we put it on an edge. or you can put it in your vice jaws if you want to actually line up right over the vice jaw. You put it in there, right? Now we take an indicator and we put the indicator on like an Indicol style mount or a type of mount that's going to let you spin around and sweep. And what we're going to do is we're going to put the indicator point on here. We're going to sweep back and forth till we hit this high spot, and we're going to zero it. Then we're going to rotate it around 180 degrees, and we're going to swivel on this face right here, find the high spot, and if those two readings match at 0, that means that your right above your center line of your spindle is right above this edge. Does that make sense? So I think I already have one of these in my vast collection of various different types of edge finders, so I'll probably let this one go. Then I found this tool, and initially it was a real, well, what is it type of thing. The guy I bought it from had no idea what it was. I thought it was kind of neat, caught my eye. We've got a slot here. We've got a very sharp little needle, like a scriber point inside here. You can see it there. Okay. So we loosen this larger knurling nut and we can adjust the distance of where the scriber is from this edge on the inside here. So apparently, based on what one of the guys that I ran into who has a lot of old tools told me, is that he believes this is a scribing tool for linoleum tiles. So back in the day, you could get linoleum, came in these square tiles that you could install, and I guess if you needed to cut one, you would just take this tool, you'd set it to the dimension you wanted, and we'll just pretend this is the linoleum that I want to cut, right? So I'll bring this up, bring it up so that this touches the edge, and just go right down the line and scribe a line or score a line perfectly parallel to that edge, provided you don't do this too much, right? I guess I just thought it was kind of neat, so I gave all of $2 for it. So even though I'm probably not gonna find too many takers for it, I figured for $2 I just thought it was kind of a cool what's it. Well, no trip to the flea market with me would be complete unless I haul home some vintage electronics. So let's get a couple of those out of the way right now. Here's so I picked up a direct drive turntable for $10, and actually I shot the video of that a little bit previous because I sold that like almost right away. So I got that turntable for $10 and sold it right away. Here's some video I shot of that before I sold it. So this guy had this turntable amongst all of his stuff, and looked pretty dirty, and I have so many of these turntables that I've been buying lately and haven't been getting around to cleaning them up and making sure that they work so I could resell them, that I've got a few too many, so I really wasn't too motivated. But the guy's asking price was pretty low to begin with, and then he ended up actually taking my offer of $10 for this turntable. One of the things that I wasn't too thrilled about was that it's a Scott, which Scott made some nice receivers and stuff, but they ended up cheapening out on a lot of stuff, and I never was a big fan of their turntables. I'd much rather have a Pioneer of this vintage, but it is a direct drive. This is a model PS68A. So direct drive turntables mean that the motor is specially designed so that the shaft of the motor is actually the spindle of the turntable itself. So there's a direct connection, as opposed to a belt drive turntable where your motor will be off to the side. It'll have a pulley. You'll have a large belt that runs off of that pulley and wraps around the outside of the underside of the platter and drives it. The direct drive turntables come up to speed right away. They have several things going for them. When it comes to vintage ones, if you've got a belt drive turntable that's been sitting for any amount of time, I can almost guarantee you that the belt's going to be bad and you're going to have to replace the belt. It used to be a lot easier to get belts So the belts either get all like gooey because the composition of the rubber or synthetic rubber just goes to pieces, or they get brittle and they break apart. It's not too hard to change the belt. It's just kind of a pain to get them, especially to size them on some of these turntables. This has got some pretty nasty scratches here on the top, dust cover, which also kind of hurts its value. But more importantly, like I was just saying, it's direct drive, so if this doesn't work, chances are it's got an electronic problem that's going to be probably severe enough that it won't be repairable. And then it's just for parts or pretty much junk. So the moment of truth. We've got it powered up, plugged in. This was with it, region 1. So this would be, oh, this is a little dust brush for your TV screen. Okay, so this is the lock for the arm for transit. If we flip this lever, okay, the Q feature seems to work, so that's going to keep the needle off of the platter. Flip it over, it starts up, and we've got a stroboscope built into here. So what's behind here is we've got a neon bulb down underneath here. The neon bulb, because we're running this on 60 hertz AC frequency, that neon bulb is actually blinking 120 times a second, because the human eye cannot detect that quick of a flicker. We don't see it as a flickering light. We see it as a steady light. I'm not sure what the frame rate of the camera here is going to, how that's going to affect what we're going to be looking at here. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be looking down here, and there's a strobe effect going on, almost like with a timing light on an old-fashioned ignition timing light on a car, where the light would flash and it would illuminate the timing mark just as it was going by the other marks, so you could do a alignment of your timing. Kind of on the same principle as that. So let's see if I could show you this. So again, forgive me, I won't know until editing this whether or not you're actually able to see this. But on the off chance you can't see what I'm looking at, what I'm actually seeing is what appears to almost be like a row of dots moving in that direction. And so what that tells me is that the turntable is not going the correct speed. There is a knob right to the left here, and this is the pitch adjustment. So I'm going to rotate this knob, and I should be able to speed up or slow down the turntable and get those dots to stand almost perfectly still. And there you go. You can see they're just hardly, well, I'm hoping you can see this, but now they're just barely moving. So this appears to be a good turntable. Now we've got a switch over here to switch from 33 1/3 RPM to 45 RPMs. So that would be for the small singles. So now it's kicked up to 45 RPM. Now we use the upper row of dots. You can see they're moving that way slowly. And again, we readjust. And again, we are able to pretty much lock it in. So I would say everything's pretty good with this thing. And we got one more quick test, which is there's a button over here that says reject. And the idea behind that is if the record was playing and we were done, and instead of having to manually lift it up, you should be able to hit this button, and what it should do is it should lift that tone arm and then bring it over to the stop position and shut off. Not working. All right, let's see whether or not it's because I have the arm in the up position in Q. So I'm just going to, because I don't have a record on here. Well, actually, let me just grab an LP. Okay, so that's not working. Let's see if it automatically does it when it gets to the end of the record. Nope. All right. So there is a problem with this record player. All right, maybe we'll do a video on repairing that some other day. Speaking of vintage electronics, check this thing out. I got this for 20 bucks, and boy was I glad to stumble upon this. This is a Browning Eagle S23 transmitter. So this is an old Browning 23 channel CB radio, but it's a two-part radio, and this is only the transmitter. Why was I glad to find this? Because I have like 2 or 3 receivers that go with this radio right now, and I never find the transmitters. I found, one receiver bought it, another receiver bought it. I kept wondering, where the heck are the transmitters? So hopefully I'll be able to fix up one of those receivers and put it with this transmitter and get some money back. If nothing else, I can get more than 20 bucks for this on eBay as is right now. Normally I don't buy Snap-on tools. It's not that I have anything against Snap-on tools. It's just that usually when you see them, even when they're even used, the prices are usually very high. So unless you get lucky and you just happen to snag a deal on something, I pretty much avoid them. Snap-on's a professional quality tool, and quite frankly, Craftsman or SK or any number of other things that I come across that I can buy cheaper, like Proto, are perfectly fine for my needs. But I came across this guy who had these 2 beat-to-heck looking Snap-on impacts. He had no charger, 2 units, and 1 battery. And of course the battery is dead as a doornail. So I have no idea whether or not they work. He knows that I can't trust his word that they work. So in the end, we ended up settling on 45 bucks for the 3 pieces. I'm hoping that at least one of them maybe is going to work. Or, I guess maybe they might be worth something for parts. But I think if they're both dead, then, and the battery's junk, then that may have been a bust. But we'll see. All right, these are 18 volt. I don't have an 18 volt power supply. I've got this 12 volt power supply / charger. This old thing here. It's got plenty of current, and you can actually up the voltage a little bit past 12, up to about 15. So if I wire it up to this at 12 volts, it actually does turn on. Let me boost the voltage up. So this might actually work. I can't really demonstrate whether or not the clutch and everything works, but that's a good sign. Well, now let's try the other one. That one also seems to be working. So I mean, the motors are good. Again, I can't really give the clutches a test, but I'm happy just hearing that out of them. So the battery pack is probably junk because I'm getting 0 volts out of it. I could try and rig up a way to charge it, but I don't have an 18 volt. Actually, I got a 20 volt charger. I don't want to risk damaging my DeWalt charger on that thing though. So you can get this battery pack rebuilt. There's a guy on eBay, you send him your pack and he'll rebuild it, put new cells in it, and send it back to you for 65 bucks. So that's one option. You can buy aftermarket replacements for this, but I've seen plenty of people online warning about really cheaply made aftermarket replacements where the guys that are making those cheap ones, they're 3D printing these parts inside you, these plastic parts, and the plastic that they're using isn't able to withstand the temperatures, so you end up with a situation where those parts can actually melt while you're using the tool, or worse yet, while charging and cause a fire in your house. I totally forgot that my Milwaukee charger is a combination charger. It does M12 batteries and it does M18 batteries. I didn't remember that because I don't have any M18 Milwaukee tools, but I've just kind of jumpered this in temporarily to see what would happen, and it is charging. So I'm tempted to see what would happen. I'm a little leery about leaving it overnight though to charge, because the way I've got it hooked up right now, I do not have the safety thermistor, which is internal to the battery, hooked up to this charger. I'm not even sure which pin, because there's 4 pins on this charger, there's 3 pins on this battery. I was able to determine which pins have some voltage coming out of it with my voltmeter. But the point is, there should be a 3rd wire sent over to the charger, to the sense circuit, and what that does is if the battery starts to overheat and get too hot, it'll shut the charger down. In this case here, theoretically, if something goes wrong with this battery, it could overheat and catch fire. So that's why it's not a good idea to do what I'm doing here. But then again, I never said doing what I do is a good idea. Oh, just an update on my experiment to try and charge this battery with the M18 here. It seemed like it was charging, but it didn't take very long before it went to a flashing green, red, which according to the symbols here tells you that that's a battery with a big crack through it, which I think is their way of saying it's a defective battery. So I think this battery is junk. Alright, so I'm going to close this video out with these last 2 little items here. This is a no-name straight edge that I found in an old toolbox, and this little lathe drive dog. I got these 2 pieces for $10. The funny thing about this is I literally walked up right when this guy was buying this old Machinist tool chest that had mostly junk in it, and he was just finishing buying it, and he was buying it for like dirt cheap money. And I asked him whether or not he had any interest in the contents, and he said no. And I said, well, if you don't mind, I'd like to look through it and make you an offer on the stuff. And all I found were these 2 items. The rest of the tool chest was junk. But I offered him $10 for this, and he was tickled pink because I think he just paid $20 for the whole chest. But anyways, we're going to close this video out here, and we're going to pick this up in part 2. In part 2, I'm going to show you the toolbox and riser that I bought at the show and the tools that came with it. And I think you're going to really enjoy that. So be sure to stay tuned and check out that when I post it, which should be shortly.